today on vacation, so I'm going to go ahead as vice chair and call this meeting to order. Um, I was hoping I could get a motion to approve of the agenda for today. Can I get a motion from a committee member, please?
So move.
Can I get a second? You? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next thing on our agenda is 1.2, approval of the minutes from our last meeting on December 15th. Are there any corrections? Anybody sees in the minutes of our last meeting? If not, can I get a motion to approve as is? Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This is a moment for public comment. If we have anybody that's not on the agenda, if there's a person from the community that would like to say anything, this would be the appropriate time. All righty, new business. We're going to review and approve our team agreement. NJ is going to lead this discussion.
Thank you, Chair. So we mostly have the same agreement that you all approved in 2022. We're just trying to have an updated agreement so that we're looking at it and then also we can make any changes that we need on an annual basis. This is mostly the same version. The one couple changes can be found in the first section, number 6, where it cites the bylaws, and then the second section, number 1, where it also cites the bylaws. We're doing this just to have a sort of circular self-referencing so that the bylaws and the team agreement are both followed and they sort of reference each other for authority.
So other than that, pretty much the same thing that we've had in the past.
Exactly the same other than that.
Are there any questions from any committee members about the new team agreement or concerns?
So, sorry, so was that emailed to us?
Yeah, it was in the meeting packet that got sent out.
I'll have a look.
It's in the printed one too. It's next to the last page.
And yeah, we have some new folks, so it might be pertinent to point out this team agreement really just governs how this committee functions, treating each other respectfully, how we conduct our business, and professional communications and things like that, how meetings get set up. So it's really just kind of a lot of housekeeping stuff, but it keeps us on the same page with how we're going to work together.
Kind of the base of it, from my perspective, is that by being a member of this committee, you're kind of agreeing not to badmouth the city in public. You're agreeing to act respectfully to other people on the committee and to function as part of the process. If you find something so abhorrent that you feel that you can't live with it, then the correct thing to do is to resign your position, and you can say whatever you want in the spotlight or what have you. But the idea is not that you can't voice legitimate concerns and questions, but that it's supposed to be done in a respectful and in a way that is part of the process, not disruptive. You could correct me if that doesn't sound quite right, but okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that has anything else on this? Okay, why don't we go ahead and see if I can get a motion to approve this?
Hello?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, so we got a first here and a second there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Accepted. Okay, we've got Venture Fest fundraising 2.2. Isaac.
Hi. So last year, so 2 years ago when we did the 100-year event, we worked with members of EDC to do some fundraising and to plan the event, put the event on. First year of VentureFest, we did not work with any of our committees in terms of doing fundraising, and it was mentioned by the then chair, Christine Turner, that she thought it would be a good idea for us to work with EDC during the fundraising portion, given the ties to business, entities, and things. And so I'm just kind of here to see if there's still interest in that. and to see if anybody had any requests or ideas about how they would want to be involved if they want to be involved.
Okay, committee members, what are your thoughts?
Brian, I've got some comments. Right now, and I don't know what the budget is for the event or anything, but the only two people that have been formally asked to fundraise for it is me and Janet Williams.
Okay.
Correct. Which was what happened last year, and it's a very difficult thing for us to accomplish. And added to that is we both have organizations that have to fundraise to do city events.
Right,
that
so
we put
so
on.
you have a slight
So there's-
conflict of
yeah.
interest. You have one ask, you're gonna try to use it for your organization. My feeling is that we should go ahead and try to help with this. If it doesn't work, then we know going forward, but I don't see how it could hurt. And I think that we all know some people that we could pester for money.
Yeah, and as a city, it's a weird spot to be in as well. We're asking partner organizations to take their time where they could be asking for donations for their organization to ask for money for us. And like the city government is a little awkward also for us to go out and ask for money. And so, typically, like I've said before, these are usually ran through a nonprofit to kind of avoid all that. We just don't have anybody that's been willing to partner with us on it.
So a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
So last year versus the year prior, how did fundraising go?
Honestly, not as well. Percentage to percentages. Adventure Fest was funded at a smaller percentage by sponsorships than the 100-year. I think that with the 100-year event, that really is like a once in a
Yeah,
city's
that-
life event.
It's been 100 years.
Once in 100 years, right? It's a really big deal, and we had a lot of supporters out of St. Helens. We had people coming back to the community who grew up here, who hadn't been here in a long time. So it's just a kind of a different event, and an event like this where it's more of like a happening
I,
is different.
I would say that in order to get more donors, you had, for instance, you like all the kiddie events, they were all sponsored by people, but there was no real recognition of those people. I did not see any signs or banners up for them. I think we need to give some marketing opportunities to people that are sponsoring that are a little stronger. I did think though, as far as the format, it was a great format. You didn't end up bringing in a bunch of fences that you had to pay for. You didn't have as much security. Unfortunately, I know it wasn't quite as attended as well as we would have liked. I think that maybe a little more marketing and a little more recognition of donors would push both the contributions up, but also the format was great. I mean, it was very affordable for families. They could come, their kids could have a great time, and they weren't spending $30 on a ticket pass.
Right.
I know it's hard to get carnival rides anyhow. The real ones, the merry-go-rounds and those, they demand so much money up front that it's probably not necessarily economically viable for a community our size.
Right.
So I think I liked what you guys had last year, but I do think we could do a little better job in marketing the event, and we could get sponsors better if we had a cohesive plan. I know we started off with one kind of package of how we were going to do sponsorships, and then we changed it kind of partway through it. And so if we could sort that out, but yeah, I think this committee would do well. I would like to put it to a vote and see if you guys feel like this is something you want to do.
I've got one more question too. This last year, what really hurt fundraising, in my opinion, was the sponsorship levels because
Yeah, they
it
were
was
very
more
high.
expensive than any other event in the county.
Yeah, so that is being addressed. Some of the things that you mentioned are being addressed too in terms of marketing. So we have different plans for those this year. The packages will be toned down like they were. So when we had asked for the packages last year, we asked for them to do full cost recovery. And so the initial package that they presented was a full cost recovery package. And we recognized that that was far too high. So a couple of things that are different is that'll change. And we did have opportunities for people to bring banners. We just didn't create them. And sometimes the turnaround's hard to get a banner created for a company. Usually they bring their own. So we're going to look at how we can display those better and try to get those earlier because some folks just didn't bring them and maybe try to push them a little bit. We have more money in marketing and outreach. We have more money for billboards. I think we're going to do that a citywide postcard to let everybody know that's happening. So we heard that some folks didn't know. And then we did actually contract with Treadway Events again to do some sponsorship at a higher level. So they have contacts at like Nike and the Blazers to do some bigger, to see if they can get some bigger dollar donors.
Couple small notes. If you would like, I have highway property with a permanent sign,
Yeah.
basement for it, 4x8 banner. I'll install it for the city if you would like. So if you guys give me a banner, I'll put it up there for a thing, and we can put it up a month or so ahead of the event.
Sure.
That might help these people as they're commuting, they'd see the sign, and
Yeah.
hopefully over time that would fill it in. Let's be careful with what we do with the illuminated sign like we did last time. It sounded like there was an accident on the road ahead. It said,
Oh, the event
congestion ahead, event.
Event ahead. Yeah, those are mandated by ODOT.
No, I know, but you could, I would say what the event is, because instead of providing a great advertising opportunity, it came not an advertising opportunity. It made it sound like we should try to get off the road and avoid
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I think that when we put those up, we didn't really see that as an advertising, but more of a safety concern from ODOT because they want people to know there could be.
Oh, no,
So we hadn't considered that factor. So I'm glad
I
you
would
brought
try to blend in.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to meet. The only other thing I would say on a personal note is you had the family hour in the beer garden. If you'd extended an hour later, those of us with kids would really appreciate it.
When you say you mean extending it later 1 by 1 hour?
1 hour, yeah. I think it ended at 6.
Yeah, we would definitely look at that too.
Okay, let's go ahead and put this to a vote. If I can get a motion from somebody to support this event by trying to actively pursue sponsors. Anybody willing to do a? Okay, so we're just saying that we're gonna try. We'll figure out exactly how with staff's help later. Okay, can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next
Thank you
is
for your time.
street lighting, 2.3.
Tracy, Hope Main Sales Channel, is that your company?
Halophane.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I have a little slide on that. Company is actually Acuity Brands, and it's the largest lighting manufacturer in Hall of Fame is one of the channels or brands. Been in the street lighting business for quite a number of years.
Would you like me to sit and go sides? Okay. And then you.
I'm supposed to hold the microphone,
Yep,
okay.
Thank you.
There we go. All right. My first guest appearance. I got to make sure I do this right so I get invited back. Anyway, I was invited here today to talk to you a little bit about, street lighting in the city or Scappoose. My understanding is you guys have been doing a lot of work talking about, the downtown and future improvements here. And so one of the easiest ways to make good impact is street lighting. It's relatively economical. It can make a big impact, and it's something that we've done all over the nation as a company. So I'm here today just to share some ideas. I'd love this to be conversational. So as I get going, please ask questions, take it in the direction that you want to gain the information that's most useful to you. So next slide, please. So who is Acuity Brands? Again, largest lighting manufacturer in North America. We do have a lot of stateside manufacturing. Most of the street lights like you see out on your street, this one right here, this Washington fixture, are produced in Indiana. Hall of Fame itself is 125 years old. We got our start back in the day making glass globes for gas lights. So we still have the glass plant in Ohio where we started, and we still produce optics today for our glass optics for our fixtures. We represent a lot of other brands as well, and those are just listed there. So the importance of downtowns, I should tell you, I grew up in a small town. We weren't even called a city, we were a village. That's how small we were. But I remember when our village did kind of like a revitalization of our downtown. It was a very historic town square, and really pulled the community together. And I know one of the things that we had was purchasing a brick, and my parents are no longer with me, but when I go back to visit each time I see that brick, and it reminds me of that time and of all the fun that I had in that town growing up. So I really applaud you for what you're doing to create something that's going to be useful today, but is going to carry on, for generations to your children and their children, and on and on and on. It's a great thing, and more people should be looking to do that. So what is some of the importance of downtowns? First of all, this is your primary employment center, right? Especially with your nice new business park out the road. Next slide. It's your economic foundation, right? This is what's bringing in, the tax revenue, and gives you the ability to do other things for your citizens. Slide. So again, the community tax base comes from a lot of the decisions that you make and the way that you move forward to attract people to, the city of Scappoose. Historic identity. This is such a historic area. And again, I came from that back in Ohio. So it is something that people really gravitate to and appreciate. And just like the photos you have on the walls here, it's something that people really enjoy. And your downtown revitalization, including your lighting, is going to be a way that you can move that forward. Civic pride, you're just talking about the festival that you're going to have. Again, in our little village back in the day, it was the Johnny Appleseed Festival, and everyone had apple butter and apple fritters and apple ice cream. And today we still crave those things. So you're going to create this same type of environment. And what we find is that with lighting, sometimes that can help draw people, not only during the day, but or during the night, but during the day. And I'll show you how in just a minute. So I wanted to bring in a couple of examples and some of the statistics that we've been tracing. For about every dollar that's spent, it usually brings back about a 5-time economic return to the village or the city that does it. So again, good return on investment that this committee is taking on. So popular revitalization projects, there's branded entertainment districts. There are things like public markets, kid-friendly playgrounds, festivals. So all these things can now come to your city, and you can create these, again, with maybe the street lighting being one of the first steps that you do. Slide. So we kind of tracked some of the top 5 reasons that LED lighting really changes downtown environments. And just going to go through those with you briefly. And then I have some examples of, where we've used this in the past and how we've, helped cities, move forward with their vision. So the first one is energy savings. I know that you have some LED lighting in town. Version to LED lighting is a huge energy savings. Next slide. Generally, 25 to 50% of anyone's electrical bill comes from, street lighting. And, back in the day, we had these great big lights that, put a lot of light everywhere. The challenge with that was old light sources like old HID lamps, they scattered the light everywhere, right? So you're paying for all that scattering light, but it didn't really maybe as efficiently as possible do what it was supposed to do, which is light the streets and light the sidewalks. And so LED now is more efficient because it pulls less wattage, but also because the optics that we offer focus that light. And so all that light is really usable, and we're not wasting light, along the way. Right? So this just gives a reason why. And the reason why is, again, better control of the light, and then also the efficiency of the light source. So again, 100-watt, what used to be 100-watt, lamp out there, now we can probably produce the same amount of light for roughly half of that wattage, and sometimes even less. So that's a huge energy savings. So again, that energy savings is going to relate to an economic savings for the city that they can then reinvest into other things like, building roads or repairing sidewalks. And so that money gets funneled in different directions. Right? This one I will just briefly, touch over, but again, this shows the difference in how light sources go. So the top one is what a lamp would look like in an old street light, right? And you can see that it scattered the light everywhere. An LED, and later if you want to come and look, you can see what an LED chip looks like with an optic over it. But again, very focused, so we're not wasting anything. Next slide, please. So safety and security, this, I would almost push this above energy savings in my book, because if people feel safe and people feel secure, they're going to walk your streets, at night. They're going to stay out later till 7 o'clock at the event, and they're going to go to the movies at night. And so this is a really big one. Next slide, please. So this is a study that was done in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and they found that their crime rates were at a 37-year low after they redid their downtown street lighting. And on average, it was about a 21%. And you could see there was a decrease in property crime, violent crime, and robberies altogether. So again, it's nice to have studies like this that actually prove the point that kind of all know. Slide, please. One thing I wanted to bring up about LED lighting as well is uniformity. So it's not only enough to get really good light, it's also LED light offers better uniformity. And what that does is two things. Your eye doesn't have to go from light to dark spot, trying to readjust. And so it allows for better visibility, which is safer when we're walking, right? We can see better. We can see people approach us earlier because LED offers higher vertical foot candles. So here's an example of two pictures. The left one is what this area looked like with an HPS light, and the right is with an LED light. And you can see the difference in the uniformity. And so if you were going to go out at night in a city, which one would you rather walk in? Probably the one to the right, make you feel safe and secure. Next one. Sustainability. So, obviously we have energy savings. That's part of sustainability. Second thing is LED lights are completely recyclable. There's nothing in there. There's no chemicals. There's no mercury or anything that has to be disposed of. And so that makes it more sustainable. And again, just the energy savings, and here's an example of, nationwide or annual energy savings. And that all adds up. Again, not to waste money, to be used for other things. Also greenhouse gases. We're doing our part as a manufacturer to also eliminate greenhouse gases, and we're doing that in a couple of ways. We used to print installation instructions that went in every single box, and electrical contractor threw it away, and he read the first copy, but that was it. So we're now using QR codes inside our fixtures, and that not only eliminates the waste of the paper, but down the road, if it's 5 years from now and a new electrician goes out to look at that light, he can use his phone, scan that barcode, and have the installation instructions right there. It also contains other information like serial numbers and manufacturing dates, which is useful to the operations side of the city, because then they have an idea of what they need if they have to replace the light. I don't want to get into this too much because this is a little bit of a technical conversation and more for your engineering and planning group to decide, but there are different color temperatures of light. And on a scale, it's measured in Kelvin. And so the higher the Kelvin temperature, the more blue the light is. So when LED was first started to emerge as a technology, they used 5,000 Kelvin, a very blue light, because that's the only efficiency that they could arrive at that point. But we've gotten better and better with the technology, and it's evolved. And so now the most popular is 3,000 Kelvin. So kind of in the middle, not too yellowy like, old high pressure sodium used to be, but not real blue. And that's a little more soft for downtown. It's a little more like old light sources, but at the same time, it gives us that good uniformity that we just saw in the last photo. So making it safe and secure. Operational savings, we can kind of just breeze through this. We've already touched on that all of the savings from energy and other things helps. The other thing we didn't touch on, though, is that, there's very little to replace in an LED lamp. You don't have to replace the ballast. Most of these fixtures are rated for 100,000 hours of use. So on an average night, that means it should last about 20 years. And so occasionally a driver will go bad, occasionally something will happen, or maybe there's an accident, gets knocked down. But for the most part, you're going to save a huge amount on maintenance, which again, that maintenance dollars can get, put back into other, community items. And this is just a one about the savings, but it's really pretty significant, and it's something that your local PUD could do for you. They could run you know, what your average bill is, and they could see what the difference is based on the wattages and stuff. And there's even some rebates available out there, you know, for doing some conversions. So it might be something that might feed into your budget down the road. And then economic growth. This is the perfect one for this committee, right? Next slide, please. So, you know, the cost of doing nothing is that things get more run down, you know, things don't go the way that you want, and, you know, you have decrease in revenue, you know, it doesn't give you as much to budget with and plan with. Slide, please. Um, and so this is a slide again, wanted to bring a couple of examples. Columbus, Ohio, a few years ago spent $5 million. And I realized that they're a larger city and this is a little bit of scale and magnitude difference. But after that $5 million they spent in this particular district, they feel that it's led to about 36 million in revenue coming back into there. So, you know, that can be scaled back to any city or village, but it really does show that, you know, doing things like, you know, changing the lighting and creating these nice spaces, you know, causes the property values to go up, causes people to come out and want to be part of the community. And, you know, the revenues are the result of that. We again have covered most of this, but, you know, it's about security, it's about safety, it's about pedestrians and citizens feeling safe to come out into your space. So one of the big keys is street lighting. And so want to just run through that with you a little bit. Next slide, please. Again, just increasing, you know, the opposite effect of if you don't do something. Next slide. So how do we do this? You know, there's just a lot of options out there, a lot of ways that everyone can go. And so today I just wanted to introduce to you a couple of different options and then show you some case studies of where we've done this and how it might look. Slide. There's a lot of options, and right now the most popular fixture that you have, I think, in your town is this fixture, just called the Washington. And this is a very nice fixture in the respect that it's very traditional, but at the same time it can be very contemporary, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. This fixture up here, and again, you're welcome to come up after and look at all of this. This is called our Granville fixture. Works pretty much the same way, only this is just a slightly different globe shape. The difference between these two fixtures is this one is glass and this one is acrylic. It doesn't really matter so much what the globe, we call this the globe, is made of. It matters more that it's prismatic. When you get a prismatic globe, you're going to get better light out of it. You're going to be able to control it better to do what you want it to do. So you're going to see a big difference in results if you use something that's prismatic. Just a little bit of, you know, so that you can all become lighting experts here. We call this the globe. We call this the finial. There's many, many different styles of finials out there. We call this the band and the medallions. Now the fixtures that you have here in Scappoose look like this, but they have a band and a medallion on it. And then this is called the ribs. We call these the ribs. And again, can be different styles on different fixtures. This part we call the capital. And the capital in these fixtures generally opens up, and that's where the guts of the fixture is, if you will. It's where the photocell is. It's where the driver is that drives the whole fixture moving forward. Slide, please. So one of the ways that we've seen people start is to get both, you know, a good quality product, but a lot of flexibility is with a modular pole. And we have a modular pole called SightLink. It basically looks like a regular pole from a distance. It has a base like a regular pole, but the difference is it has these tracks or these channels, if you will. And the purpose of the channel is to be able to slide items onto the pole and attach them. Things like banner arms, you know, planter baskets. You can even attach street signs or wayfinding signs, things of that nature. And the way that you do it is you attach to whatever item you're going to attach. Like this is an arm. You attach something called a track nut, and that track nut slides down that pole, and then you can adjust it wherever you want. So the reason that this works out so well in downtown revitalizations is that you can, you know, create the look and feel that you want for your city with this. You can, again, attach banner arms. So your festival's coming up. Maybe, this year with some of the donations, you invest in banners for that festival that you can reuse year after year after year. The nice thing about this pole is you don't have to buy all those accessories up front either. So I worked with a little city out on the eastern part of the state, and what they did is they purchased the pole. And then about 6 months later, when they had some new budget come in, they bought their planter baskets. And then after that, they bought their planter arms. So again, being modular, you don't have to buy all of these attachments up front. You can just buy your pole and your light and then attach them later. The one caveat to that is you do have to size your pole up for all the future equipment you think you're going to want, because the pole has to be sturdy enough to, hold all of that equipment. But that's something that we can do for you. We have a modeling program. So if you say, here's the laundry list of things that we think we'd like to add someday, then we will size the pole so that the pole you purchase up front, will hold all of those things. But it's a great system. It's also becoming very popular because we're seeing more cameras being used. We're also seeing, small pieces of like small cell equipment and stuff. And a lot of cities are even getting revenue back for attaching things like that to their equipment. It's another whole conversation, but it's increasing the popularity of a modular pole with a track net. So I'm going to leave some brochures you're welcome to look at. I'll make sure that NJ has electronic copies as well. And you're welcome to come up afterwards and see the system for yourself. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring a full-size pole in my little car. But there are installations of these you can go look at. The other thing I should point about it is that electrical contractors love this pole. And the reason is it's segregated. So in the very center channel is where your main electrical goes. And then you have 4 different compartments. So one of those compartments can be an irrigation line. So one of the downsides of having planter baskets is somebody has to water them, right? And you may not have staff at the city that has time to go out and do that. So by putting irrigation lines in there, the plants are self-watered. The other channels can be used like for low voltage or, for cameras and things like that. So it's nice. It passes inspections really easily because there's no way that, for example, the irrigation line can interact with the electrical, which we all know is a big no-no. So that's the other reason that this has become a really popular pole. You can make it look like the other poles that you have. There are different bases that you can attach around the bottom. So again, from the distance, looks exactly like, what you had before. Next slide, please. We do have a whole variety of regular poles as well. And the reason I show you these is, let's say you decide on a SiteLink pole for some special parts of town, where you're going to have big economic development or business parks or whatever that may be. But maybe your residential, you got a new residential development coming in. You may not want, to put something quite this extensive in there because you're not going to put planter baskets and arms. So we can match it pretty closely, with something in the regular line. Next slide. So again, huge architectural outdoor portfolio. That's what we call this type of light. We also have what we call the Cobra heads, what you think of as traditional street lights. We have that in our line as well. Slide. Did want to mention that we do have all types of controls technologies as well. In these fixtures, there is a little button hole right here. This is actually a photocell. So behind this little window, if you will, is a photocell. So this works on ambient light. So if this little photocell is in there, this light's going to come on at dusk and go off at dawn. Another way you can do it is you don't have to do that. You can control the on and off at your electrical point of service with a photocell there. But should you want a very extensive control system, those are out there and they can integrate with other systems as well. I will say controls are still a little bit in the infancy. I mean, they've come a long, long way, but there's still a long way to go as well. Next slide. So now we're getting into the fun stuff. This is some application photos. I just wanted to show you to see how this all goes together. So can we go back to the first one? I like the first one because it kind of shows, again, just kind of an area where people probably walk through and mingle, where there might be little shops or things available. Next slide, please. This one I wanted to show you because there are 2 lights attached to this. And this is something that can be done in certain areas if necessary. Oops. Oh, okay. So the top one would be to light the street. The one facing the sidewalk is what we call a pedestrian scale fixture, so a little bit lower, a little bit fewer lumens or less light output. And then again, you got your banner arm and your planter stand. So it's got everything. Next slide. I love that one as well. Well, a stop sign. I'll just talk to them as they come. You can actually even get matching poles for stop signs. If the, again, not something you can do at every corner, but if you have a really special area, you might want to consider that. Next slide.
Gotta go 2 ahead then.
Okay. So this one is Christmas, you know, always a fun time of the year. Again, you could decorate the poles for all types of holidays. We can put a festoon box into the pole, which would hold an electrical receptacle. We don't install the electrical receptacle. Your electrical contractor would do that. But it's always a nice idea, especially in these areas where you're going to have your festivals to plug things into. And this was kind of fun because they put their street sign on there as well. Next slide. Again, wanted to show you this one because they actually used it for streetlights. Again, that's a little bit much probably, but again, in certain areas might be something that you like. And you can kind of see how that pulls it together. This is a little bit different type fixture, going back to the one before. The reason I liked that one was because it showed how they did a nice entry sign, but then they matched the base of the pole to the entry sign. I don't know if you can see that little detail, but I thought that was a very interesting thing that they did. The light that's behind that. And then again, we light parks all the time. We actually helped with the park here in Scappoose a few years ago. And sometimes for parks, you know, they'll do a little one-off. Some people like green. I got to tell you, I'm still a fan of black, but some people do. They want that to blend in a little bit more. So it brings up the point that there are a lot of color options as well. But black, basic black, is always usually the way that people go. Next slide. Okay, so I wanted to show you this as well. Again, we do a lot of residential work. You know, new developments coming in. Generally, how that works is the developers, you know, pay for those lights and then they revert to the city once the developments are done. So that particular picture is this fixture, which is a full cutoff fixture. It has no lens. The lens is up inside, and it's just a matter of personal preference, but I did want to show that to you because it's something a little bit newer. Slide. And this one I think is a beautiful picture. Again, you know, the American flags, the planter baskets, and then this one as well, which is a little more plain along the river, but really beautiful setting. And so it's something that you can really do, you know, between banners and flags and flowers, you can really create, you know, what your vision is for your city and really personalize it so that when people drive in town, they say, this is Scappoose and I want to be here. So next slide. That one. So I'm not going to go through all the points again. I think you kind of get the options here. We're definitely here to help in any way we can. We can help, you know, with determining light levels. We can help with, you know, different types of equipment. Again, if it's something you're interested in, we can get you some budgetary numbers so you can see how that looks. But there are definitely options, you know, and again, I just feel that this is a really good start because if you're going to invest in lighting anyway, if you invest in something that gives you some options down the road, it allows you to really personalize it, you know, moving forward. So anyone have any questions or anything I can answer do to help?
I noticed your new design is better for light pollution. There retrofits or something else going on with one that we already have?
You can. So relatively speaking, there isn't a lot of uplight from this type of fixture. You will always get a little bit out of anything that has a globe because of the reflection, right? So if this had a lens in it, it would be just as much uplight as this. This one is zero uplight because there's nothing for it to reflect off of and no way for it to go up. The one thing that we can do to this fixture is we can put, it's called a spinning. You can put a metal cap on this. And I noticed driving through, is it Rainier? I think it was Rainier had spinnings on the top of their Washington globes. You can do it. The one challenge with it when you're trying to create downtown atmosphere is that from a distance at night, they look cut off sometimes. So you kind of have to balance that, with the overall look and feel with the amount of uplight that's going up in the area. The one way that it's toned down a little bit too is in color temperature. So again, the 5,000 Kelvin that we talked about that was really blue, that was really visible from a long distance. And now that it's a little more softened, that helps a little bit. And then the other way is just quite frankly having good lighting design, which is what your engineers and planners will do for you. They'll determine what light levels will keep the light here. And LED, by virtue of being able to control it, can do that. There's also shielding available, to keep it off of like neighboring properties and things like that. So yeah, a lot of accessories. Good question.
Mentioned 100,000 hours of service. That I know that LED degrades over time.
Yes. Yes.
At the
It will gradually degrade. You're right. I believe that at the end of the life, end of life of an LED is considered 75%. So you'd still have 75% at the 20-year lifeline. Most likely by then there's going to be even better technology and you'll probably be swapping them again.
A lot of agencies recognize that there might be some light fall off, so they'll start out at like 90, and then every few years they'll just bump up the current driver to keep it constant. And you can do that with software through a centralized system, or you have to do it manually on each light. Which we don't really have that many in the core.
I have a question. Actually, it's more for Chris, to be honest. So I've heard from citizens that Veterans Park, the lighting is can be obtrusive at night, and it does have quite a large what's it called?
Light.
Light. And I know we're going to use that same lighting on Buxton, according to the plans. And then of course Grabhorn's coming on too. Is there plans to address that? Because it's the whole Veterans area. Now we're going to have the Buxton area and the Grabhorn area, and it's already concerned to citizens in those communities. You heard that at all?
I'm not sure that they've specified lighting for the Buxton Ranch project.
I thought it said that was going to match the Veterans, the stuff that's right on JP West.
No, so for our all new subdivisions, with one exception, in the city of Scappoose, all have Cobra heads, and we've gone through over the last 18 months and we've converted all of the old carriage lights that were on cedar poles and various other lamps. We've got some shoebox out there that we still have. Those are all being converted over to aluminum Cobra head poles. Those have a 6-foot arm. Those are all downlit. So any new subdivision is going to have that, and then we're retrofitting the older ones as well as the lights burn out. So Buxton will not have decorative lights in it. The decorative lights are primarily reserved for the downtown overlay area and parks. And the one exception to that was that before I arrived at the city, they allowed the developer to put these types of lights in the one neighborhood over there. It's the Dutch Canyon Estates neighborhood. So be consistent, because it was a 3-phase project. We just let them finish out all 3 phases with those lights. Those have all since been converted to LED, so that the downlight is not an uplight to an uplight to those as there was.
One of the things too, that's a little bit of a differentiator. If you're retrofitting an area where you already have poles and you're putting a new light but on an existing pole, and that pole's not going to move, that spacing may not be ideal. The spacing was probably ideal for HPS fixture, but maybe not for LED. And so you do your best to match that. But if you're not moving poles, it's a more challenging installation than if it's brand new and you can work with it a little bit more. And sometimes in areas, it's a combo of both, right? You're doing something new, but you're dovetailing into something old. So that can be maybe, part of something that happened as well.
There wasn't, there wasn't as much attention paid to actual lighting design in the city. It was sort of ad hoc. I'm not sure. I don't see any evidence that previous projects, there was really a lighting design for the public portions of those projects. So now we require lighting design. So looking at photometrics, they have to provide that to meet ITU standards. And we've established a standard now with the PUD, and which matches in terms of light fixture. It matches now. Columbia City, St. Helens, and Scappoose all have the same sort of street light elements now. They're all Cobra heads, and we all use the same wattage and color. That's been and everybody's pretty happy.
Are they LED?
They're all LED. Everything new is LED.
So the new stuff that the city's installed so far, what Kelvin are they?
They're all 3,000.
Oh, they are that low. Okay.
There were some cities, California went out and adopted LED like really early on, became available. And to get the most efficiency, they went right to the 5,000K lights because they thought, well, that's more bang for my buck, right? So they started just putting these 5,000K light fixtures in all the neighborhoods, and people just instantly started complaining about it. So they did some studies. They found that what most people thought that the 3000s were the best sort of compromise to go with. And so that's pretty uniform now through many areas.
I would just suggest that maybe you look at 4,000 Kelvin. I know the 5,000 definitely starts having that blue feeling. The 3,000 is going to be closer to an incandescent light bulb. Those are usually around 2,700 Kelvin. And you may find that they give a little bit of a yellow feel. I think 4,000 Kelvin might be a little better, but I'm not the expert, but I've just played around a lot with outside lighting over the years, and 4,000 seemed to be a cheerier, lack of a better word, thing. It's it's not that blue. But your LED lights in the city's offices that I installed for you guys, those are all running around 4,000 Kelvin. So they're not that blue light, but they have a little bit of color to them, but they're not yellow. So you might want to actually put like a 4,000 and a 3,000 Kelvin outside someplace and just see what they look like. And if it's too late in the process, it's not the end of the world. But I think you might be happier with 4,000 Kelvin. It gives you more of a homey feel if you're down to 3,000, and 3,000 Kelvin. So that is a benefit, but then it isn't as bright. So
we don't dictate the lighting fixtures or wattage or color on private sites, and they can do whatever they want.
Oh, okay.
So that we don't regulate that. We just ask that they meet the ITU standards for light, for luminescence.
So candle.
They can select pole heights and fixture types and all of that. For the public streets, we're going to stick with what we've all the three cities.
Not the 3,000. Okay.
And the county have adopted as public lighting, just because they maintain all of that lighting.
Okay.
They maintain the stock.
Oh, okay. So it'd be too complicated to mess with it.
At this point, it would be. And the other thing that kind of constrained with is light pole placement. So we really have to pay attention to that. We can't put them where it may be desirable to put them in terms of the performance of the fixture, light levels, just because of spacing along a road. So we don't have the same flexibility as you would on a site.
Okay. Oh, sure. Go, Paul.
Just a quick question, and I'm sorry if I missed this. I was kind of multitasking for a second, but do any of these products operate as standalones, or do they need to be, are they all designed to be part of a distribution system? So do you have any solar panel products so they're self-sustaining as opposed to having to be wired into the electrical system?
We don't produce solar, but we do partner with a company that can do that. And if it's something you'd like to explore, we can certainly have them take a look. They usually look at an area and then, they go out and look at all of the maps and the amount of sunlight, and they do a big technical analysis and come back to us and tell us the light levels that are needed. The fixtures do require certain wiring within them to be compatible with solar. So there aren't as many options out there as there are, for wired, but we definitely have options for that if it's desired.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I had another question.
Sure.
So the different globe designs, do they impact the efficiency of the light fixture meaningfully, or it's really not going to impact it that much?
It's not going to impact it that much. And the reason is that the light fixture is designed as a whole entity. So the product team looks at the shape of the globe and then they put the components in there that are going to get the light levels out that they need. And so this fixture is going to be just as efficient as the other two. So the globe difference is really preference, in style.
Great. Can I just interrupt for one
Yes.
quick question? As far as the acrylic goes, is it impacted by any UV degradation at all? Does it change the color of it and the light performance over time?
Not as much anymore as it used to when you see really old acrylic, but we're better at, the additives they put into it and the way that they produce it. So it's not a huge impact. Again, it's really personal preference. Obviously, it's a lot easier to cut prisms into glass than it is into acrylic, but we're really good at both. That's really something that differentiates us is our optics. And so you're getting a good optical performance out of both.
Is the acrylic cheaper?
No, actually, the glass is.
Okay,
Because we own our glass factory. So, yeah,
One thing I-
virtually the same price.
One thing I've noticed in town here is where we have some acrylic globes, they seem to get a lot of moss buildup.
Yep.
Is it just because we're in Oregon, or is glass better than acrylic for moss accumulation?
So when the fixture leaves the factory, it's very, very tight. But when the first time someone operationally gets in there to change that lamp and the old ones, right, they've broken that seal. And if they don't get it back on just right, sometimes there will be, a little bit of water egress in there and then mold flourishes, right, because of our environment. Because the LED, you don't have to replace it. If you're going to replace something, it's probably going to be in this capital area down here. So you shouldn't see that same as high of incidence of that. That being said, if you want to totally get away from that, then you go with the globeless. And that's why some people like that, is because the lens is on top and they don't have to worry about it. But for the most part, seals are better. If you think about it, street lighting's been around for 100+ years, right? So the earlier versions of everything are not quite as efficient as what we have now. We have better adhesives, better acrylics, better additives. So it just depends. We have actually old glass globed lights that have been around for over 100 years back east. So
Light link pole, how long has it been in production? Was there a predecessor to it? Compatibility.
sure. I don't think there was a predecessor to it. Not in my tenure with the company. So it is something a little bit newer that's come out. I will tell you that it's not anything. There will be longevity with this. If anything comes out, it will be more accessories or maybe a little different way to attach. But it's a pole. It's kind of like other streetlight poles. They're going to be around for 20 some years. I think one of the things that's pushing it forward is all the addition of like cameras and things in communities, and there's no good way to attach them. So if you take a regular street pole out there and you attach, let's say, a banner arm with a band, which is the way it's usually done, that band actually can cause the pole to corrode because water gets behind that band, right? And then, you create vulnerability with the pole. The nice thing about this is these tracks are all completely powder coated. And this powder coating is, 5,000 hour or 4,000 hour salt spray tested. So it's going to take a lot of years for that coating to wear out. And so that's why this system is much better for attaching things, and it's become so popular.
The poles aluminum, or what are they made out of?
Aluminum. Yeah, it's an extruded aluminum. We do have both aluminum and steel, and that actually is a good point. Metals, of course, are all over as far as price points are concerned, and it's bouncing back and forth between the two. We offer both, and be happy to price both.
Is there a huge difference in cost?
It depends on the price of metals. So for a while, aluminum was always the way to go. And then all of a sudden, steel became less expensive and more available. Right now, aluminum has a long lead time, and that bounces back and forth too between the two. So it just, the answer is it depends. Our pole lead times are pretty good. Anything that we produce ourselves, we've stayed pretty stable.
Thanks.
How long have the light types that you've displayed there been in production, and how long do you keep a style in production?
So we keep a style in production. Gosh, I'd have to go back to the product team, but I can get those answers for you. This fixture's been around for ever. This style. The fixtures receive upgrades, but it's upgrades to the chipsets, it's upgrades to the electronic parts, the drivers, and those things. The actual shape stays the same. We just offer more options usually. So the full cutoff one is newer. I want to say it's about 5 years old or so, and they came up with the lensless version. But this and the Granville, these aren't going to go out of style, especially again going back east in the Midwest. These have been around since our beginning. These were some of our early designs.
Are there any more questions? Staff, so what are you looking from us as part of this process?
Well, I appreciate you having Tracy come down. I've been working with her for a number of years on different projects, and like she mentioned before, she helped us with the lighting at Concomly. And so the purpose is that this, Brian, probably better than I do, that we never really had a standard for downtown overlay areas. It's described that we'll have decorative lights, but it's not defined. And so I think Brian helped city define that a number of years ago.
I'm not taking credit for that. You're not sticking me with that one. I was reactive, not proactive.
Yeah,
to what I had to deal with at the time.
So what the challenge is that we're continuing, the brand and style of light that was originally installed is really not available. And so with every project, we've been trying to match it, and different, we're just using different sort of, variations of the same Acorn style light that we have. And the PUD hates them.
We have a burned one out right now. The current one's without the LED. The bulb life is not great.
Of the 11 that we have in the core, which is just this few block radius here, 4 of them are out currently. The arm orientation is all different. Some have electrical outlets on them. Some have the banner arms perpendicular to the road. Some have them parallel to the road. Some have them at 45 degrees to the road. They're all in horrible shape. And so the thought is that now that we're having some development in the core, to actually adopt a standard. And we've been working with the developer who recently finished up the mixed use project across the street here with the coffee shop. They're looking at expanding and adding another building, a mixed use building. We recently acquired right away from ODOT for First Street improvements. And so it just seems like the right time to standardize lighting if we're going to add a significant number of new lights. Sorry about that. And adopt that for the core area. I'm not, and also, you know, we're gonna pursue some grants to just do a wholesale change out of what we have now, just in the core of those 11 lights.
Okay.
Get them all looking the same. With whatever you decide you want, banner arms, the hanging basket arms, all of those things.
So from a cost point of view, the poles that you said with the different channels sound like a really neat pole. But are they going to be 4 times as much as, or are they incrementally more expensive?
You know, they're not gonna be, you know, 4 times as much. They will be a little bit more. But again, it depends on the bells and the whistles. And quite honestly, it depends on how many bells and whistles you want to add down the road because the price increases as the pole thickness increases.
Okay.
There's more metal in the pole. So, you know, once there's you know, a decision, or even if you want to try out a couple of options, we can give you some budgetary pricing. But it really does depend on what you want to put on the pole and how thick we have to make that pole.
Is currently hanging
On the few that we have, we just have a single arm. It's like 18 inches on a few of them. And it's not really designed to hold a banner or really anything. It's just the two random kind of arms sticking out. Some just have the bracket, the arms are missing.
We put arms on. The only things I've ever seen them good for is banners or maybe Christmas lights. They're really not as, they're not structural in a real sense. So you couldn't just start saying, okay, we're going to put 50-pound baskets on each side.
Now, and the banners would need two arms to really function well.
What have we done at Commerce?
They're
So the scope of this lighting project, if I understand you correctly, is the old town overlay area, potentially commercial areas outside of that, or is that not even commercial? So just parks and old town, downtown overlay. Okay,
and the downtown overlay is you know, that finding that,
they get redefined.
that might be a whole new, another topic.
Yeah, we
It's
so
extensive.
so for those that may not know this, currently in the downtown overlay, there's different zones. So it's not all the same standard everywhere. So that was probably something that would be addressed through looking at the downtown overlay is,
Currently in the downtown overlay, the acorn type, you know, pedestrian scale lighting is required, but only on certain frontages. In other words, I think on some of the side streets where it may still be in the downtown overlay, the decorative lighting is not required. So that would be another decision point as far as do we want this type of lighting, you know, even on side streets, and that'll be a conversation we can get into as we start looking at that code. I think it sounds like initially just for next steps, you know, we'd want the committee to be thinking about if we want pricing on the what is it, site link pole, then we wouldn't want to know ultimately what do we want on the pole,
right?
you know, hanging baskets, banner arms, outlets. I, and once we have that, then we could get some pricing compared to, you know.
Why don't we put it to ask this quick, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So my question would be, you know, we've talked about the 500 or the 50-year plan of Scappoose.
Uh-huh.
Well, then should we look at the cost down the road compared to now? If we have developers that are coming that want to expand there, do we want the stuff and we pay for that cost now so that 10 years, 15 years down the road, when more people come, you already paid for the initial cost. We're not coming back to pay for the banners and everything else
So
down the road.
yeah, generally, in city staff can correct me, but the city sets development standards. Then when there's a new development, the developer is required to pay at his expense for that standard. And then once he gets done, if it's in the right of way, he turns it over to the city for maintenance.
That's correct. There wouldn't be any cost to the city. We're just trying to, this presentation, we're just trying to establish a standard.
Right.
And then as far as retrofitting what we already have, that would be on the city to do that. We'd be looking for a grant to do that. We've already had some of those discussions and you know, that's, you know, similar to what Vernonia did with their downtown improvement. They did trash cans, They did murals, things like that. There's grants for that kind of stuff. So we wouldn't, for a project where we're just replacing 11 existing lights, that's pretty doable to get
Doable.
some funding to help with.
I'll throw out my personal opinion is that as long as cost doesn't go out skyrocket, I would think the more flexibility we have with these posts, the better. Because we put up the posts we have, we all thought they were great at the time, or at least they thought they were good enough. And, they obviously turned out to be deficient down the road. Not only, we had issues even initially with color of light because we had different colors of light. We finally got that sorted out and got the same color. It was problematic. So it'd be great to have standards. As far as Acuity Brands, I actually worked for the company, full divulgence, but I worked in their chemical division. They don't have a chemical division anymore, but they were known for very good quality products. And so I think you've got a good partner as far as that goes. So pretty much just at this point, should people take a look at the fixtures up there? Is that the next step that you want us to do today, or?
Sure, yeah, you guys can have a look
Okay,
and
well,
then just maybe
You want
either,
to do that at the end of the meeting?
yeah, if you guys want to think about it more, that's fine. Or if you today want to decide, to direct staff to move forward with getting some cost on this more flexible pole option.
Okay, so NJ, is it, I'm not quite sure on the rules on this one. Can I make a motion as chair, or am I not supposed to?
I think you could, yeah. As long as you
Okay.
get a second.
Okay, so I mean, what I would, and, oh, well, actually, let's first do a discussion. Do we want to go ahead and try to give city some direction today, or do you want to get more information first?
Well, the only thing I'm sorry.
What more information? Where are you at?
It's just kind of hard to say with, we don't really have costing. You just said, well, it's not that much more. Well, is it 20% more? Is it 50% more? Because we don't want to get ourselves going and saying we want the Super Bowl when we can't afford, a game day.
Right. Well, and I would just say, I think again, we would have to tell her first what what we would want.
But it seems to be the base pole is the big differentiator, right? You have the modular system versus the non-modular system. Is that correct?
Well, that's one of the differentiators, but then also if you're going to choose the modular system, the pole structurally has to be able to hold everything you attach to it. So if it's in the middle of the summer, it's got to hold the head on the top. It's got to hold the planter basket full of flowers and soil. And believe it or not, those weigh a lot. And then it has to hold the banner arms. And so when you put banner arms on a pole, and the wind comes, that actually puts a lot of stress on that pole. So there's different thicknesses of poles. So what we could do is say, okay, generally speaking, you're probably going to want 2 banner arms and, one set of banner arms and 1 planter basket, and we could try to give you some costs there. The reason we don't put costs out in a meeting like this is because all of a sudden I go in to buy a base car, but then I go in and add, the entire gauntlet of options and my price point's much different, but I'm happy to get you some, budgetary prices you can work with. The other thing, just going back to what Chris said, one thing that we help cities with too is once you decide on a standard, we can create what we call a standard drawing, but an engineering drawing of here is our light and fixture standard for our downtown core. And then when a developer does come in, you hand them that sheet and say, here, this is what we want. And then they can put that into their package. So again, it's just helping you create some communication so you get the same thing time and time again.
I have a question. So we're going to apply for grants for these 11 fixtures. Are the grants like a flat amount per fixture so that if we have a nicer fixture, a nicer pole, is the city having to absorb that cost? Or is this one of those deals where we show them a quote, a bid to do this project, and then if it costs more, we potentially get more of it paid for?
Yeah, we would just package together whatever, those improvements might be, which is how like Vernonia approached it. They just kind of bundled everything together and said, on a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 grant to do these improvements. And, and that covered all the costs.
So
We wouldn't try to, it's not on a per fixture basis.
we could get a pole that looks, for all intents and purposes, the same as the nicer pole, but just wouldn't have the flexibility of use if we decided down the road that it was too expensive for other areas. Is that correct?
Exactly. The one slide that I showed, we have a lot of just standard poles. Again, you might want to do that in some of your neighborhoods where you don't need the bells and the whistles.
I think in the downtown overlay, it's silly not to give a flexible pole
I-
because we know we
I'm-
want.
I'm there too. I think unless we come back with a quote and the quote scares the bejesus out of everybody.
Well, and for instance, like East Columbia from Highway to 4th Street is in the downtown overlay.
Right.
So all of that blocks. Those could all say have, banner arms and maybe, but maybe only down to 2nd Street. Banner arms and flower baskets to say 2nd, and then you just do banner arms the rest of the way. Or you could kind of transition it
Yeah.
to a non-flexible pole for the rest of it.
So,
So you could just kind of focus
so it really sounds like we have two different issues here. One is the 11 poles immediately that we're dealing with, which we could establish a higher standard for the poles. Because, and then another issue is what do we do going forward for outlying areas that are still part of the overlay and that kind of thing.
yeah, because like Northwest First, I believe all the way down to the middle school, all the way up to EJ Smith is all in the downtown overlay.
Okay.
Would you want flower baskets and banner arms on that? I don't know.
I don't know.
And so those could just be a standard fluted pole.
So,
for
so,
instance.
so if it's not a flex pole, I'll call it flex pole for simplicity. Adding ability to have fixed arms on it for flower baskets and those kinds of things. How much is it at a significant expense, or is it not that crazy? Or again, you're rebuilding the pole, making a thicker pole to support the baskets.
So you would still have to do the same thing. You'd have
Right.
to make sure that the
We'd,
pole
we
could
still
support
pretty
it.
much have to tell you guys in advance
Yes.
what our intent is, and then we go from there. And we'd also even have to tell you where we want the arms and all that, because it's going to be done when it's done.
So what we do, if you said, hey, we want this fixture that that we like, this Washington fixture, we want to put it on this pole, we run it through a modeling program, and we take into account the fixture weight, the fixture EPA, and we model it to make sure that it passes the wind loading that your city has set for you, to make sure that it's safe. So we do that before we sell any pole. And so it would be the same thing. On a retrofit, it's really up to the entity to make sure that structurally, the pole would hold whatever you put onto it.
So the pole you said was a little bit more expensive. The stuff that attaches to the pole, the accessories.
Mhm.
Do you have any idea what?
I'll get you a general budgetary price to work with. I just worked with a city out east, and they felt that things were very reasonably in line with other stuff that they had done. So we don't get a lot of feedback that this is a cost prohibitive, only, two cities in the entire state can afford. I mean, we're in the business for street lighting, and so we try to make things as economical as possible and as functional as possible. So we can work with you on getting something that's there. And again, being modular, as long as that pole is sized in, it doesn't cost that much, believe it or not, to make that pole thicker up front. So we could load that pole up. And again, you may not buy all your baskets this year. Maybe you wait as revenues pour in from the festival and other things, and then you have a chance to add on, if you will.
Chris, on the height of the poles, has the city given any thought to how tall they want to make them?
Yeah, I don't remember. They're in the downtown overlay. They're more pedestrian, a little more
Oriented.
pedestrian height.
Because you have Cobra heads too in downtown.
What's that?
You have Cobra heads here too. It's not just the only source of light are the decorative lights.
Yeah, there's some on it. Well, there's some hanging Cobra arms on power poles.
Yeah.
Which those would get swapped out,
Oh, so, okay, so.
where it's appropriate.
So, let's see, I'm going to pose this as a question, not as a motion. For the 11 light fixtures that are in downtown, should we go ahead and ask staff to go ahead and get a quote on those 11? Let's just roll through the people and give your feeling. Okay, yeah, are you ready for a quote on the 11 fixtures?
Yeah, but we need to specify what additions we
Right.
want.
I suggest we get a quote on the basic pole and then the modular pole with the thickest, because that would give us, you said it's not much more expensive. And then what the accessories are, the 3 accessories we talked about, which is the banner, the pot, and then,
I would want them to
One
have
outlet.
electrical outlets
Okay, great.
available. Yeah.
and we could look at it and see. I mean, if it's 10 times more, maybe we might decide that it's not the way to go. Or if it's reasonable, we'll decide. I mean, it just gives us a place to start.
So- So if I get what you're saying is have them bid it both ways.
Yeah, and then we could look at it and make a smart decision.
And let me, I just want to interject that more than this just being I don't want this to devolve into a discussion about replacing 11 poles. Really,
Right.
really
Right.
what this whole meeting is about for this topic is to determine a standard.
Okay.
So we have a project that's going to be happening within the next year to 18 months. We need to give them some specifications. Probably going to be adding 4 or 5 downtown overlay lights. I need to know what to tell them.
So we need to
Budget,
pick up, we need to pick a type of light. pick a
Right.
Style.
As far as retrofitting, it will just, if we decide we don't want to do 11, or we want to just do them in sort of piecemeal fashion as they go out, or whatever the case may be, we'll just follow that same spec. Whether or not we get a grant or not, we would just decommission them as we are with the other lights and replace them with whatever the spec is.
So what is staff's recommendation? You
I
don't want
mean,
to give it to us.
me personally,
Oh, you're the guy that's
mean,
done the most research on this.
oh boy. I don't know that we're like this kitschy community that really harkens back to the 1880s, where we sort of relate to an acorn light. And I don't see that connection here. Like say Independence or some of these older communities that have their old brick buildings in their downtown. We don't have that. We have relatively new buildings, except for a few across the street. They don't really have much of a style at all. So just my personal impression is that we've got this high-tech hub thing going on with OMIC, the Commerce Center. And so it'd be nice to do something sort of contemporary but modern and less maintenance. And some communities are going with the globalist style. It's less maintenance. There's no
When
uplighting.
you say globalist, what are you saying?
It's the
Black one.
center one.
Oh, the black, the one that's black. I think it's a pretty fixture.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of looks a little odd until you look at it a little bit, but just because it's missing the globe, but they provide really excellent light. There's no fixture to kind of get in the, or globe to get in the way of the light performance.
So I don't have my glasses on. There's no glass around the metal frame?
It's
So has there
completely-
been a problem with bugs and spiders
I
and
mean, that's a
and-
great question, and that was one I had too, Brian. I don't know the answer.
There is, but Washington County in my neighborhood redid took the glass globes out of the existing 1960s pole fixtures
Mhm.
and put the LED in the top. And it's great light. It's much better than what was there. However, it does attract bugs.
so there's a maintenance issue then for the city?
Well, they're not going to collect anywhere though, right? They're just going to buzz around it when it's on.
I'm saying like spider webs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Schmutz.
Yeah, there's schmutz.
I don't have complaints over it. I don't doubt that it happens from place to place, but I think any light fixture that you put out there, you're going to have some type of attraction to. So in this fixture, there is a lens under here that covers the LEDs. That's
So,
it's
okay,
covered.
it's
there's
covered.
There's nothing to get in there.
The
And
only place,
it's completely sealed and gasketed, so there's no place for things to get inside of it.
I will tell you that on some of my light fixtures that I have, like can lights on the outside of buildings, I have to go by with a leaf blower. And I have to blow out the insides of them because they get an accumulation of spider webs. Because the light attracts the bugs, which then attracts the spiders. And so then you end up with a mishmash of spider webs and they get kind of dirty. I think it's a beautiful fixture, though. I just don't know with, I mean, it seems like we have a lot of spiders around here.
Yeah, and that's a, that'd be a preference. I'm leaving that up to
Okay, so
committee to,
not gonna get blamed for this one later, huh?
and probably, we can get some anecdotal information on that from other agencies that have
I
adopted.
mean, it's not nightmare. It's just a question is, does the city want to have, if the city's okay with coming back through with leaf blowers on occasion and
You
blowing
don't
out.
necessarily
spiders?
know that you need to do that.
Hasn't been that
It's-
bad where you are?
It's not a big deal.
Okay.
We've had a large install down at City of La Center, and I think that install's 3 going on 4 years old, and we haven't had any
Like-
challenges that are
Okay.
known.
Well-
It is gaining a lot of popularity places. In fact, Portland General Electric is using that now for some of their replacement fixtures. It's on their approved list.
Tracy, do you think generally globalist version is a little bit cheaper than one with a globe? Same style?
I'd have to run it. It's based on, again, the lumen package, that you need. But I think they're all going to be relatively close. Yeah, because what you're really paying for is the light, right? So you're paying for the LED chips and the electronic components. The outside piece is, relatively the same.
And and these are just a few examples. I mean, Tracy has many, 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 so it's not just,
Right.
I think, you guys, perhaps take a look at the pamphlet and kind of pick. I think the poll will be an easier decision to make, and then the globe part will be where you want to spend your time.
So maybe we could talk about just, we only have a few minutes left and we're gonna have to end this meeting. Fine with going over time if people want. People have other things going on. Maybe it sounds like the globe we're not going to resolve today. And so maybe we could get pamphlets for committee members and they can take it with them. And
We want any citizen involvement in this place or?
that's kind of the idea behind our committee is that we are kind of the citizen involvement to some degree. Is that we're a sounding board for the city. So the idea is that we all, and you're welcome also, like if you take these pamphlets, you show them to whoever you'd like. And let them look at them and see what they think. That is kind of the idea behind this process, is that we're here to be the sounding board for the city to give community and business input.
If you wanted this,
I think
George, can you talk into the microphone?
I think the globalist one there, the black one, looks great. However, they have been installed in other cities, correct?
Yes.
Why don't somebody call the cities and find out if there's issues with spiders or webs or something of that nature? And then it might be a little easier to make a decision. I was a builder years ago, and I've seen a lot of things, and some things obviously don't work as well as you hope. But myself, I think it's a beautiful bulb. But I would suggest that somebody just check with somebody that's had them up a couple, 3 years and see.
so. With our limited time left, do we feel like we can make a decision on the polls today? Are you guys comfortable with making a decision on the polls?
I'm not.
You're not?
I just think we need to be fiscally responsible.
Okay.
That's all.
I would just suggest that you decide what you want prices on. So
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's price it. Let's price then. Is everybody okay with the idea of pricing the flex pole with a fairly high load, with the ability for banners, baskets, electrical outlet? Anything else that the city can think of?
I would think hanging baskets, the banner arm set, and outlets would be the 3 things we would ever want to look at. And then I think I would also want to price just a standard pole without the option, the flexible option, just for the side streets in case we do have different
Right.
districts.
Right, would we want those still without The standard pole, would we want it still to have the ability to have the electrical outlet and the,
That would be a question for the committee. We could do it both ways too.
my inclination is, we put these poles in, I can't imagine having the ability to put an electrical outlet is gonna increase the cost very much.
Yeah, and let's see what the base pole is versus doing the
I
flex.
think we should do an
pole,
apple to
Because
apple,
if we
though.
see, we do want to see the price difference.
Yeah.
Like, we want to
Okay,
see what that
so-
difference.
So would everybody be okay with bidding them both way, but similar package, meaning the flex pole with the 3 items we talked about, and then the non-flex pole with the 3 items we talked about? And that way we can see what's the difference in cost.
Well, what I'm saying though is, I think if
You
you're
don't want
gonna
it- you
add
don't-
stuff to it, then we're doing the flex pole, because we
Okay.
don't want it to like degrade
Okay,
anything. So I'm thinking flex pole without attachments as just a place to
Okay,
to compare.
so just a flex pole, both poles without attachments, but we have to tell them what the attachments are in order to get the right,
I'm saying two different things.
okay.
So just the pole with the globe or no globe or
Right.
whatever we decide for the top. And then the pole that is the flex pole with the 3 attachments we want,
Okay,
right? Because what I'm thinking is we will probably have different standards on side streets than we do on main streets. So number one, it's going to tell us what that cost would be. But number two, to Paul's point, it's going to give us kind of a base price point of the
how
different
cheap, how low can we
costs.
go?
Yeah.
So do you, on the base pole, do you want to have electrical outlets or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so we still have it.
It's not a lot. We actually produce the box and it gets welded into the pole. And then there's a cover, but the actual outlet itself would be supplied by the
Right,
contractor.
yeah.
So it would just give you that option.
Okay, so can I get somebody to make a motion then? Do that? Or I'll make it. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we get pricing on the 2 different style poles, one with the 3 options of electrical outlet, banner, and flower basket, and one with just the base pole with just the option of electrical outlet at a height that the city deems as the appropriate height for these poles. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, I think we're done with this for today. Would like to get pamphlets on the globes from you for committee members and for anybody in the audience that would like to have one if they don't have one already before you leave.
I have one question first on the lighting. If we did do a change in style, would we plan to change like what's at Veterans to match that, or would we just say, no, we won't do that?
I mean, again, we could adopt different standards for the parks too. We could have those because they're kind of a unique element, and the poles are going to be shorter than they are on the streets because those are all on pathways usually. I mean, there's some on the street too, but yeah, they could be different. I mean, it's sort of.
They LED right now?
They just relamped all of the ones at Veterans
Okay.
just
And
recently.
I will tell you guys, I've done enough LED stuff over the years. If somebody puts an LED in and you don't like it, it's 6 months. It loses a little of the edge as the lens gets dirty and I mean, I know she won't, but I've just seen it 100 times. You lose a little bit of the brightness after 6 months to a year. You'll lose a little bit of dirt. And if it's a little too bright, what you like, if you give it a little time, it may not be quite as bright.
I mean, to Paul's point, I mean, I would love to see those poles and all of that replaced because they look really bad.
So it'd be a
They're all
question of
chipped up,
of
but-
budgetary
I mean,
and.
they have new globes.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be great to do that. We just spent a bunch of money relamping them, but
Okay, so we are at time. We had a 2.4 of urban renewal process recommendation. Should we bump that to our next meeting?
Well, we can't because the URA meets on the 6th of February. So we'd
Okay.
want to get it. I can go through it really quick.
Okay,
All right, so if you go to the memo on the last page of the packet, it's addressed to the Urban Renewal Agency, and this is in response to what we've been talking about with getting you all involved in the urban renewal grant process. So just to expedite this, go to steps 1 through 5. This is really the meat of what the new process would look like. And then zoom out. This memo would be going to the Urban Renewal Agency as a recommendation to update the process of how these grants get reviewed. So first, the grants would come to staff and we would review it and make sure that they comply with all of the rules of the program. And then once we get it, we would put it in the next EDC meeting packet for you all to review. And then you would discuss it. You would look at how well it meets the economic objectives of the city, how much it increases the beautification of the city. And so that the goals of these grants are really aligned with you all as the economic development eyes of the city. And so then you all would review it, and then you would basically put together a final recommendation with a vote where you could approve it, you could deny it, or you could recommend a modified approval to the Urban Renewal Agency. And then it gets passed on to them. The chair and the vice chair can present the recommendation, and then the URA has that to consider. And they still get to be the final decision makers of the grants, but at least they have your recommendation, and it's, you know, they have that economic development eye, since all of you have involvements with businesses in the city. Then the last paragraph that I just want to reference, it just goes into some language that we took from Planning Commission, and where you know, shouldn't vote on matters that you have a direct financial interest in. So if you apply for a grant, you should probably step out of the meeting where they're discussing that. And then, yeah, that's standard. You're all obviously on this committee to push your own agendas, so yeah, we know. But
I try not to.
and then another common rule with hearings that involve big decisions that comes from our quasi judicial language is that you have to declare any ex parte contact. So if someone goes, "Hey, I know you're on EDC and I want to talk you up and butter you up about this grant I'm proposing," you would have to declare that and then say whether or not it impacts your ability to be unbiased.
Clarification for me.
Sure.
On that one, and I've heard it in the past, and I'm not sure if it was correct. If they've turned an application in, then that's when you have, or they've started the process, that you can't really talk to them. But if they haven't turned an application in, it's pre that process. Is that true or no?
Well, you would want to be safe and declare any ex parte
no
contact
matter
you
what.
have
Okay.
about the application.
Okay.
Again, it's just to be above board and create a sense of an honorable process.
Part of what's going on is that right now the grant program is fairly small, but as the URA gets moving, those grants will get bigger, and council has a lot
Amounts of money are involved. There's more questions.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you're fine to talk to somebody. You just have to declare it.
Yeah, and then you have to declare
Yeah.
if you
And
feel
it-
you can
right.
be now who biased. Okay. Is everybody okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay, let's make a motion. Can I get a motion to accept this document? Well, this is good. This letter is going to go to the urban renewal, if I understand it, if we're okay with it.
Yep.
So I'm looking.
Motion to accept.
Okay, so you're making the motion. Can I get a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so next meeting is February 16th, and the one after that is March 16th. And I'm adjourning this meeting, but please get the top light fixtures from our lighting specialist. Thank you.
Then there's the normal